Hey everyone, welcome back to the Superhero Show. I'm Daniel. This is Christopher.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about Luke Cage, which we've seen early. Please do not hate us. This will be largely spoiler-free, but obviously we'll talk about some details. We're not going to go into specifics.
We ain't going to spoil it for you.
Yeah, but I don't think there's too much to spoil in episode 1. So we're going to talk about episode 1 only.
Yes.
And general thoughts on the show. So episode 1, it's actually quite a slight episode, I think. Like, it's a lot of character stuff and it's setting up some stuff in motion, but it's not, I don't think it has the impact of previous, like, Daredevil episode 1 and Jessica Jones episode 1.
Yeah, there's not a lot to spoil because not a lot happens.
Yeah.
It's less of a, I thought maybe we'll get his origin story in episode 1. Yeah. It's not about that. There are little clues and hints and bits and pieces, but it's not that. Although there's not a lot of mention of Jessica Jones either. She gets kind of mentioned as his rebound girl at one point. A little bit. But that's it, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's setting a lot of groundwork. I think it's the slowest start for one of these Netflix shows. But maybe they feel like they can afford to do that because we have been introduced to him already in a previous series.
Well, that's what we're going to come into. Like, unlike Jessica Jones and Daredevil, we've spent substantial time with this character already in season 1 of Jessica Jones. So it's kind of trading off some of that knowledge, I guess. So we're finding him kind of again in hiding, this hero that is currently not a hero when episode 1 begins. He's not doing anything heroic, he doesn't want to expose himself, he seems to be a fugitive. So the most intriguing things about episode 1 are the hints at the things that did happen to him and why he's in hiding. I guess that's the most intriguing thing about episode 1 to me. Yeah,
and I felt that some of the dialogue was a bit too on the nose and some of the exposition was a little bit clunky because it's weird. It's doing two things. It's a semi-sequel to another Netflix series, but equally it's got to establish itself in its own right for people who haven't watched Jessica Jones, and so they have to do this weird thing and acknowledge the Avengers and things like that. They mention the incident just to make sure people know, this is still in the Marvel universe.
I do quite like the idea of a guy selling bootleg footage of what actually happened.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It was confusing at first because you felt like he was selling copies of the movies.
Avengers, yeah.
And you think that doesn't work.
It's like the best footage you'll ever see.
And they mentioned Justin Hammer, don't they, at one point?
Yes, as well, which I thought, that's kind of a weird thing to put in, but I quite like that.
Yeah.
Because it almost like fleshes out the world a bit more than just going, oh yeah, Avengers. Tonally, I thought that's a strange thing because we talk about this a lot on the show, and it's something I think people latch onto a lot, is when they say, oh, this Marvel thing is going to be doing this genre. Yeah. It's like an easy way to kind of categorize the show or the movie in your head. And the thing that we got talked about this, and I guess it goes back to the origin of Luke Cage, the character, is kind of a blaxploitation thing. But the tone is kind of a bit all over the place, I think, because sometimes it goes for that, like it's very sexy and the dialogue is quite melodramatic sometimes. But sometimes it then transitions to being the kind of gritty Marvel Netflix show, and then sometimes it's a bit lighter and it's a superhero TV show. Like, when Luke Cage is at its lightest, it's way lighter than I think Daredevil or Jessica Jones ever were.
Yeah, it's got a sense of fun when he's swaggering around town. Yeah. And the stuff that happens at the end of the episode. Yeah. Yeah, it feels like quite a joyous, fun.
Yeah, because even the violence at the end, and it's the one that is a scene that's out there in all the promotional material when the guy punches his face and his wrist breaks, that is quite gruesome. But the majority of that fight, because he is more superhuman than Daredevil, it's funnier.
Yeah,
because you're not worried about him.
It's a fun power, even though he's kind of wrestling with it for a lot of the episode. It's a fun power to have, and so when you see it in action, it's quite fun to watch.
Where Matt just gets the shit beat out of him. Like, Luke, is quite fun watching him just throw people through a window like it's nothing.
They've talked about the music playing a really big part in the show as well, and the episodes being almost like albums. And you got a sense of that in this as well. In the club, there's a lot of music. It's
live performance as well.
And it's a guy called Raphael Sadiq, I've been a fan of for a long time, and so it was really cool seeing him in there. And I wonder if in each episode we're going to see well-known artists actually playing songs, and then having the scenes choreographed to their songs, and the lyrics are obviously touching upon what's happening in the episode. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and so another element that I think's there in episode 1 is the villain, Cottonmouth. Yeah. Now, Kingpin was obviously a huge presence in Daredevil season 1. Same with Purple Man and Jessica Jones. This guy's introduced, but I feel like almost like the villainous element in this show is going to be more diffuse, because he seems like in episode 1, he's the main villain, but it also seems like there's a lot of kind of diffuse corruption.
Yeah.
We hear about other villains.
Yeah,
we see
Diamondback.
We see corrupt council people. So I feel like maybe it's a bit more like a network of villains in this show.
Sexy as well. I clocked it. I think it's 26 minutes in. They're doing it already.
I was thinking about this because I watched this at home. Mm-hmm. You were watching this in the office.
Yeah, I got a couple of funny glances.
When I was like, saw the scene that we're referring to, you were watching The Office.
Joe, who sits next to me, did it. I saw him do a double take. He didn't say anything, but I saw him do a double take, wondering what I was watching.
Boobs.
Boobies. I think I was looking at my phone, embarrassing at that point.
Yeah.
There's some weird references as well, or again on the nose references. So the Biggie Smalls painting in the background, the picture that he stands in front of, that's in the trailer as well, where he's got the crown on him and he references Biggie Smalls. They talk about...
It's quite like the line when he goes, do you like my picture of Biggie? Yeah, it's awesome.
And then the mention of Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison.
Oh, that was all... when Luke's just sat there with all his books going...
That's a bit much, because have you ever read Invisible Man?
No, I haven't, but I know about it.
Yeah, a very political novel about a guy who, a black
Ellison.
man who, because of the colour of his skin, is invisible in society. Yeah. And so obviously, you know, Luke Cage is trying to be invisible right now in spite of his powers, and it's like, yeah, that's not subtle, is it?
Yeah.
but fine, like, it's all good fun, but like, I find it lacking in subtlety and nuance, this opening episode.
Yeah. What about Mike Coulter? I liked him in Jessica Jones. I want to see more of him. Like, I'm a bit unsure.
What, like his body?
We see a lot of that. He's like deceptively massive. Like, I think when he has a t-shirt on, you're like, yeah, he's a big dude. And there's a bit without a shirt on, he's like a big wall.
I think the trouble is with this episode, it's quite understated and it doesn't
he's
make
understated.
He's understated, and the story. You don't care about anyone yet. And I'm, who knows? Maybe I've seen episode 2.
You've seen a bit more than me.
Maybe I don't know. And maybe something happens there where it starts to switch and you start to care about what's happening. I think in this one, it kind of made me shrug come the end of it. Yeah. But the thing is, you give it a pass. I don't think it was a brilliant opening episode, but you give it a pass because you've watched the other seasons, you know who's making this, and you can trust in them. And it's like a movie where you've got to think of it the first 10 minutes of the movie where it's just character stuff that's going to pay off later in the film.
I think that's the point, is he's hiding himself in this. So it's hard to get to know him as a character because he's not exposing that to anyone in the show. So you don't really know who Luke Cage is yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, can't wait to see more. And we're going to talk about more.
Yeah, I think not next week, but the week after, because the show debuts on September 30th.
Yes.
And so that's a Friday. We don't normally post a show on a Friday, so maybe the Saturday we'll do ours. Well, it'll give people time. We'll talk about the first 7 episodes.
We'll be talking about it a lot in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be meeting Power Man next week.
We hope.
In a hotel room in Paris.
What if it falls through?
Well, that's on Netflix.
Okay.
Loads of feedback. Check this out. Shall I go first? You go first.
I'll go first, because I think this is really interesting. So last week we were talking about the female-focused superhero movies, all the ones in development. And James Roscoe in Liverpool wrote in with something we didn't talk about, but I think it's an interesting point, even though I'm not going to say everything that he's written. But he said, I really enjoyed your discussion on the female-led superhero movies and agree Marvel has fell short on this, but I believe this will soon change, and here's why. And he talks bullet points, thanks James, about Ike Perlmutter, but some of it is speculation. It's stuff that we've all read about, but I don't know if we really want to say officially. But we know that him and Kevin Feige didn't necessarily get along.
No,
and a lot of blame has been put at his door for certain things that have happened in the past. James talks about Feige now reporting to Bob Iger, who's doing stuff at Pixar and Lucasfilm, who have really made an effort to increase female representation. And so for that reason, he thinks things are going to change going forward, and that there'll be a greater effort from Marvel to really get
inclusive.
Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting point, and maybe that is why they've been quite slow.
I can't wait for 20 years' time. There'll be a book about the rise of Marvel Cinematic Universe where you get a lot of the details come out.
I'm going to start making notes now. Yeah, I'm up for that.
This is Will, who's from Cooking Lake, Alberta.
Which sounds, I can't believe it's real.
We'll have to check that.
I want to go to Cooking Lake.
There's been a YouTube video doing the rounds on why Marvel music is so bland and forgettable. So if you want to see that, that's www. No, I won't read that. I was wondering what your thoughts were on this. Have you seen this video? I've watched some of it.
I actually I forgot to watch it. But it's something we've talked about a lot on here. Like, I don't need to see a video to know my opinion on some of these.
So one of the main tenets of the video is the Marvel music is not challenging like a lot of good film scores are. So it scores the emotion you're seeing in that particular scene. So if you see someone scared, the music sounds like somebody being scared. And the guy's theory is that it doesn't challenge you, so you don't remember it. It kind of washes over you. My first thought about how the DCEU, despite committing some of the worst crimes against screenplay writing, have managed to make all three of their movies quite musically striking. Zimmer seems to put his soul into Man of Steel and Batman v Superman as his swan song retirement pieces. Poor guy. Is he retiring?
Yeah, well, he said he's done superhero. He's not going to do any more superhero movie.
Right. Okay, I didn't know that. Squad, despite being sonically jarring, did feel a lot like a music video.
Yeah, I'll agree and disagree. Having watched Batman v Superman again the other day, I think I actually really like the Man of Steel score.
So
I think it's brilliant. It's still not the rousing superhero score I want to see, but then that wasn't the rousing superhero movie I wanted to watch. But I think it's a really brilliant score. And then watching Batman v Superman, all the best bits of the score in that were Man of Steel stuff. The stuff they brought in to when it's the Justice League or the other two characters coming in, and when they're working together, they have these little flourishes of it. It's like a guitar rock thing.
The Wonder Woman one.
I think it's terrible. I really don't like it, and so I'm worried about that going forward. If that's now our Justice League theme or our Wonder Woman theme,
it's hard, isn't it? Because also Zimmer's really good.
Yeah.
And he's done lots of really good scores. Like, there have been some okay bits in some of the Marvel movies.
No, sure.
But there's just been a lot. There have been a lot of forgettable ones.
It's very hard to, remember a tune and sing it out loud,
like,
isn't it?
The Avenger one probably is the most distinct.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at humming stuff anyway.
All right, this is from Mark Mazzio, who says, I think for the Harley Quinn movie, they should do a Gotham City Sirens movie, and it could essentially be the Suicide Squad movie that should have been. A villains movie where instead of saving the world, they're actually doing bad stuff. And so Mark kind of pitches this here. I think it's quite a good pitch. You have Harley, Catwoman and Poison Ivy planning heists together. Basically, it could be a true heist movie. Batgirl could appear as the antagonist, someone for them to fight against. They could use Batman if they didn't want to bring Batgirl in, but I think it's cooler with Batgirl. And you could have the Joker play the role he should have played in Suicide Squad, this sort of omnipresent force that shows up the Sirens' plans and throws their plans into chaos and ultimately takes on a villainous role in the end. You could also really get into the Joker and Harley's abusive relationship and give Harley the arc of finally learning to stand up to him. This is the female superhero movie I really want to see.
It's a good pitch.
Yeah.
Who can we forward that onto?
Ike Perlmutter.
He's free. This is Mike Frost from Clevedon. That's a good name, Mike Frost. Villain. Do you think Marvel should create a Black Widow series on Netflix?
Yeah.
Actually, I've been started watching The Americans recently. That's quite like a Black Widow show that I'd like to see.
I think this is a really good idea. That's why I put it in. It's a yes.
Good idea, Mike. Well done.
Especially, that stuff we were talking about last week where Joss Whedon was saying he'd like to make it a really cool espionage movie. Well, then that could be a great TV series.
Yeah.
Tom from Australia here. He says, do you think that people are more critical of the movies in the DCEU than the Marvel Cinematic Universe due to it coming after the MCU is well established? For example, do you think that people are more critical of BVS's over-reliance on setting up the Justice League because they should have learnt from the criticism of Iron Man 2, which was criticised for being mostly a setup for future films? Should DC be learning from the criticisms of the MCU, or should people expect DC to be allowed to make the same stumbles that MCU made in Phase 1? Good question.
That's very well. No film is made in a vacuum. Like because these are not just works of art; they are designed to make money. I think it's a bit naive not to look at what your competitor's doing, who's done a very similar thing to what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's just good market research. You should be doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you should still have your own creative convictions and what you want to do with it. But if they've done something that categorically does not work, and then you do it and make the same mistake, that's a bit foolish in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's got to be obvious by now that no one likes a movie that's setting stuff up rather than...
Yeah, you feel cheated out with that movie.
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Tim from Melbourne, I'm a fan of the show. Richard E. Grant pretty much confirmed as Mr. Sinister in Wolverine 3. Thoughts? Is that true?
So they said he's playing I can't remember, a scientist or something in it. And then the rumour is that Mr. Sinister's going to be in the movie, so people are putting two and two together, and it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, like, I've not seen Richard E. Grant in anything for ages.
No, I mean, he did. The last villain I remember him playing was in Hudson Hawk, and that didn't go so well.
Bring him back. I think he looked great in the makeup.
I'm not a massive fan of Richard E. Grant, but open mind. I am a fan of Withnail and I. So, last week we suggested, rather stupidly, doing an extra show per week.
I know.
And we said if people want it,
to throw them back.
yeah,
now,
then
isn't
we'll
it?
do it. But I did qualify it by saying if we get 50 people, and I think I counted 49, so I think we're all right. But yeah, overwhelmingly people said we should do this. Have we got time to do this? Did they pay us enough?
No, like I said, it's not incentivized on per video, per view. So no.
Should we stop doing the podcast?
Stop doing it all.
So a lot of feedback on this.
Burn it
front.
to the ground, Dale.
Yeah, more work for Dale. It's not for us. We just sit here chatting. He has to edit it. David Stevens wrote in on this front and said, I really like the idea of you guys doing an additional show where you discuss and review classic superhero movies. It would be good to dust off some of the older DVDs like The Rocketeer, the Keaton Batman movies, and Ben Affleck's Daredevil. It would be good to see if these movies have improved or worsened with age. And that's, David in Plymouth.
I think, like anything, we should maybe pilot it and see how it does. And then if no one watches it, so putting it back on you lot, then bin it off. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, if it's just like what we've just done with Luke Cage, that's not too much work, is it?
Oh, you want to do it like in depth.
Yeah, we do, don't we? We want to have like categories.
Want to do the Salinger Captain America.
Yeah, well, I watched that recently.
Jacob from Deer Park, Texas. Are people making this?
Yeah, you're making this up, guys.
Deer Park. He lives in a park. First off, a strong yay to anything you all. He's definitely from the south. He's written y'all. Decide if it involves more shows. Secondly, if you all do decide to look back at an older superhero movie, possibly adding where you found them could be helpful. I've wanted to see Swamp Thing movie for a while, but I've had trouble finding it. Yeah, like I think it's been added to Netflix, but that's in the UK, so I don't know if it's available on Netflix in America.
I might watch that this weekend.
You can also buy it on cheap DVD here, but again, I don't know if it's out of print in America. Thanks, Jacob.
Frank says, subject line, drunk superhero show. And then he says, this is a must. Why not for Halloween in full fancy dress?
You've dressed as Kick-Ass.
Kind of.
Yeah, well, no.
I'll just wear my Kick-Ass hoodie again.
Sure.
It was just a hoodie.
I've got that Spider-Man outfit, but it's been a few years since I wore it. It's like when we wore the tuxedos for the award season, and we were like, yeah, I might take this off. It's a bit tight. This is from Adam Baker. I wrote that you should do more. I meant that in a very complimentive way. You are two of my most favourite British people, aside from Julian Barrett and Noel Fielding. That's very nice. I think, very similar. I think it would be great to have a short segment or even one show a week that showed off the graphic novels that are loved by you guys and watchers at home. Yeah, that's a really good idea. He's from South Carolina. I think we've discussed that as well, like in the office, about focusing on like seminal graphic novels.
I'd have to read more then, though. Alain from Quebec City says, once a month, give the IGN UK gang a few pints and let them give us their version of Mystery Science Theatre.
I'd love to do that. I guess we can't do that because of a rights thing.
Well, then, no, you do it as a podcast, don't you?
Yeah,
and then people play it while they're watching it.
Yeah, that'd be good. I wonder how many people want to do that. I'd love to do it.
I prefer to do that than our actual podcast.
Or any shows, or anything.
Work. Just do that all day, every day.
Get pissed and watch stuff.
Just sit there watching things.
What a job. To be fair, our job isn't far from that.
I suppose not.
Darman from Ireland. That's right, isn't he? He said, enjoy trying to pronounce my name.
Don't think so, mate.
How would you say that?
I don't need to now. I did change that from my pile to yours earlier because I wanted you to do it. I think it's Dearmond.
I was just thinking, if you were to do an extra show a week, would be great to see you review, critique famous comic book storylines that you think would be good for future films, kind of like the way BVS was loosely based on The Dark Knight Rises. There are so many great storylines out there that many, including myself, don't know about and probably never get the time to read. So it would be a great way to educate and inform on some of the best stories from our favourite Marvel and DC characters. Yep, I think that's good. Also, we can act them out.
Yep.
I think you'd make a stunning Batman.
I thought you say Black Widow.
Obviously.
Tim Newton-Howes has said, I agree and more with your claim today regarding Ant-Man. It's not only very rewatchable, but I think it's the most rewatchable MCU movie so far.
It's got
big shout.
Maybe it's because it's got quite a lightness to it.
What is the most rewatchable one? Avengers always seems to be on, and I'll watch like 20 minutes of it whenever it's on, as long as it's not the first 20 minutes.
I don't think that really supports what you were trying to get at.
Not that nonsense with Loki.
It was the most rewatchable. Yeah, actually, I can't watch the beginning of it.
Loki with his stick. Iron Man's pretty rewatchable.
Yeah, Iron Man 1's good.
Yeah.
Shout for that.
And Winter Soldier's quite rewatchable. Anyway, he adds, how about you combine Rebecca and Al's questions from last week with Chris's suggestion, a midweek boozy 5-hour peanut flicking look back at superhero movies?
Midweek every week.
We can't drink every week.
I'll be good for nothing the next day.
We can't drink every week.
Peanut flicking reminds me of that bit in Ben Affleck's Daredevil where he puts that old woman to sleep with a peanut. They've come on a long way, haven't they?
We should do our top 3 peanut scenes in superhero movies.
This is Dean from Sacramento. Just wanted to say that the idea of an extra episode a month, just a month.
See, this is good.
I'm a busy guy too and can't spend time watching more than one film a week. I thought that sounded like a great idea, so I just wanted to add to my email to the pile, hoping to get to 50. Here's some films I suggest for watching. Blade, excellent. Swamp Thing 2. Is there a Swamp Thing 2? Captain America 1990, we've discussed that. Punisher 1989 with Dolph.
Rewatched that recently as well.
Generation X.
Don't even know
TV
that one.
movie 1996. Hilariously bad, but actually gives the character Jubilee something to do.
Intriguing.
Thanks for all the work you do at a flat salary. Commendable. It bloody well is, Dean.
Should we start a Patreon for an additional show?
Patron.
Whatever
that's
it's
a tequila.
called. Whatever.
Let's start that.
I always wondered why it was called that.
Let's start a bottle of Patron for
Should we just do this in our spare time?
No.
All right, we'll do it. We'll do it. Trouble is, I'm going to be away the next couple of weeks, so we can't start it until we're into October, I think. But maybe October we try and do one.
You get a bottle of Patron. Do you know that's on your foot?
Yeah.
Okay, just point it out.
I threw it and it landed.
It's lovely. All right, see you next week.